So let's spend a little bit of time thinking about the Bootstrap grid. What I have here is an empty HTML file, and all I've done is give it a title, Bootstrap grid, link the Bootstrap style sheet, and put in the necessary JavaScript libraries, which includes jQuery and Bootstrap's JavaScript file. So this is an empty file, and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go to my web browser and actually open this file, just to see what it looks like. And it's a blank screen, which is exactly what we want. So what I want to do is start playing with the grid. And as I may have mentioned already, but just in case I haven't, Bootstrap's grid is set up such that there are always 12 columns available to us. And typically what you do is in the body tags, you'll have a container. And inside of that div class equals container, you have as many rows as you want. And you can create a row just by saying div class equals row, and closing that div. And inside of that, we can have columns. So let's create one column that's 12, or one row that's 12 columns wide. And we can do that really easily. Div class equals col, and I'm going to go MD for medium, and 12. And then I'll just put some text in there. This is a 12 column row. And I'll close that. And if I go save that and reload, it doesn't appear to be very exciting, but let's make it more obvious. Let's add a class called well to that. And all that does is give it some shading. So there, we have one row that's 12 columns wide. So now let's split that row into two. Div class equals col md6, and I'll give that also the class of well. This is 6 columns wide. I missed a quote there, so let's put that in. Close that div and change this one to be 6 as well by changing col md12 to col md6. Save that, go back to the web browser and reload. And you can see we now have one row with 2 columns, each 6 spans wide. So all you have to remember is that for a given row, everything has to add up to 12. So 6 and 6 make 12. If I make this 3 and this 3, and then just to make it the text match, what happens? Well, it only takes up as much space as we give it. So what happens now if I close this row off and then create a second row? Div class equals row slash div. And in here we go, we'll put in, say, we'll copy this and paste it twice, so it all adds up to 12. So now I have one row that only uses 6 of the 12 available columns, and I have another row immediately after it that uses all 12 of the available columns. Let's reload that. And it does exactly what I think it would do. Now you might be asking yourself, why call medium 3? Is there more than a medium available to us? Well, in fact, there is. And the place to find out about that, of course, is in Bootstrap's documentation. So let's go have a look at that. Back to my web browser, and I'm going to just paste in the URL because I've already got it copied. And this takes us to the Bootstrap site, and I'm looking at CSS Grid. And this describes exactly how the grid system works. So we have a lot of sizes available to us. We have XS for extremely small, we have LG for large, and it describes how it all works. Now it's not that complex, and here it breaks it down for us a fair bit. So col XS dash plus the number of columns is for extra small devices like phones. Tablets are up to greater than or equal to 768 pixels. Greater than 992 pixels is a medium-sized desktop, and anything bigger than 1200 is a large-sized desktop. So I can actually go back here to my HTML, and if I was to add another style here, col XS, and make this 12 columns wide, and then copy that and paste it everywhere, if I save this and go back to my web browser, bring back my page and reload it, nothing appears to change. But if you're in Google Chrome and you go down and choose More Tools and you choose the JavaScript console, you notice a little button up here. and yours might be at the bottom, but up at the top of wherever your console appears, you'll see something that looks like an Android phone or an iPhone. Click on that and see what happens. It resizes your screen to be the size of a typical handheld device. And you notice now how every one of those divs takes up the full 12 columns wide. Because this is a very small screen, these would be narrow columns, but each one adjusts to take advantage of the appropriate class for the screen resolution being used to access it. So this is something to bear in mind as you use or as you develop any website in Bootstrap. You want to take into account the different size screens that might be used to access it. So that's pretty straightforward.